Hey everyone, it's 10 Types, and today I'm talking about 5 rogue decks. These decks are all classified under Other in Played Out Limitless, and they're pretty interesting. Just want to show them off using some different cards. I'm sure you've seen some of these decks, I imagine, but you probably haven't played with most of these decks, if any. This first one is one that I have talked about some on the channel, not this list though. And this is a Wyrdeer V Healmess Ogerpon EX deck. It does play a Sinistcha as well. Of course, if you don't know, Healmess Ogerpon EX accelerates energies to itself once each turn. For each Ogerpon, you can play 4 of them, and then you draw a card for each. So it's card that kind of replaces itself. The energy replaces themselves throughout the course of the game. So it's not exactly like a true engine, but this is going to be helping you draw some cards. And it does have an attack, which is, of course, it's a grass type. So it is useful against Charizard EX, which is grass weak, but nothing super crazy there. But then you do have the Sinistcha. This is it's a pretty powerful Pokemon for a single prizer. Spill the tea, discard up to 3 grass energy from your Pokemon. It does 70 for each card discarded in this way. This is obviously pretty solid, nothing like absolutely insane, but for a single prizer, 210 damage, 1 energy, really strong. You do have really low HP though. Poltergeist also has low HP, but is immune to bench damage and effects of attack, so Dragapult EX or other things like that will not be messing up this Pokemon. Theoretically, abilities could, but that probably won't happen, so that's like a nice ability to have. Then, of course, the main attacker, if you don't know, I said this at the beginning, is Wyrdeer V. Remember, I just said it's like a Wyrdeer V Ogerpon Poltergeist deck, but this is the main attacker, and this is a really powerful attacker, 40 for each energy attached to this Pokemon, which may seem like, in order to take a knockouts, you need knock out another V, it does depend on the V or the 2 priors, of course, but you're looking at 6 energies. But you have your ability, which says when you move this from the bench to the active, you can move any amount of energies to it. So for a switch, if you have 4 Ogerpons in play, which you can definitely do, assuming one's not pressed, we'll just say you have 3, and then you can go ahead and get 3 essentially free energies on this Pokemon. That's a free 120 damage after 2 turns of Ogerpons, even if one of them's knocked out. You're still going to be you're going to have lots of energy on it and be taking one shots on a lot of Pokemon. And then you also have Glass Trumpet. Glass Trumpet is a really, really powerful addition to this deck, really is what makes it work. And it needs a Terra in play, which will be your Teal Master Ogerpon EX. But what it says is if you have a Terra in play, choose up to 2 of your bench colorless Pokemon, which will be your Wyrdeer V. There's also a Squawkabilly EX. It doesn't matter where you accelerate the energies, really, because you'll be moving them with Wyrdeer V's ability, but you accelerate a basic energy from your discard to each of those colorless Pokemon, so it's just an extra 80 damage with your Wyrdeer V, and you have 4 of that, which is really good. And you have Bug Catching Set, you're just kind of like turboing through your deck, and a Drawing Loss, you have 4 Professor's Research, 2 Carmen, and then it also plays a Briere, which says if your opponent has exactly 2 prizes remaining, you can take an extra prize with a Terra Knockout. And Teal Master Ogerpon EX, that isn't super strong, it's not bad. Some matchups is quite good, but a lot of matchups it's pretty mediocre. Generally, definitely worse than the Wyrdeer V, and also the Sinistcha could be surviving a hit. This certainly will be probably surviving a hit. The Sinistcha won't, but certainly even up 2 prizes is definitely big downside there, and is not surviving hits all the time. So it's not your best attacker, but with Briere, it could be the right choice. Also, 4 EXP share. In the list I showed off on my channel, I did not play that as just pure turbo with no bug catching sets either. But we do see the EXP share to keep energies in play to allow you to stream the Wyrdeer Vs, which you can then recover as well with Night Stretchers. And so, as well as Silene, that can help recover stuff, but it's just a deck that can hit really hard and hit hard back to back to back turns with the EXP shares and Glass Trumpets to recover those energies and just put them all back in play, of course, with the Ogerpons to draw cards as well. It's a really fun deck. I haven't played this list, but the list I showed off was really, really fun. My favorite turbo deck in Standard right now plays kind of like an expanded deck. If that's good, then you'll like it, and if it's not something that's good, then don't play it, right? But definitely a really cool deck, and all the lists will be down below in the description. Also, I want to quickly say I am doing a video coming up talking about about Sword and Shield cards. So you can actually rank the Sword and Shield cards for yourself, make a tier list. That will be in the description or the comments. Not sure where that'll be, but that'll be somewhere down below. Also, subscribe if you enjoy the content. I'll be, still doing daily content. and all that good stuff. But the next list here is a really cool list. This is one that I have played, this exact 60, and it plays Annihilape EX, which doesn't have like a regular art from the main set, which is kind of weird. But Annihilape EX, I guess, is the main attacker. It's probably not, but we'll say it is. And you have 320 HP, which is interesting. You can do 150 for 2, which obviously is not that good, but there are times when it is useful, specifically when hitting for a weakness, because your first attack here can actually do much more damage. But Angry Grudge says put up to 12 damage counters on this Pokemon. It does 20 damage for each damage counter you place in this way, so you could do up to 240, obviously more with weakness, and that is a bunch of damage, only 1 energy. Of course, being a Stage 2 EX, one thing you really do like is your high HP and tankiness, and put lots of damage counters on yourself. You know, you don't have that, but you can do big damage for only 1 energy, which is really nice. And the best decks in the game, which are Charizard EX and Dragapult EX, they have cheap attacks on stage 2s that are powerful. Charizard EX is 2 energy, but it pays for itself very easily. You just play it. So it essentially is a free attack. And then also you have Dragapult EX. Dragapult is definitely a harder attack to pay, but with the tool, it's very payable for just 1 energy. So having a 1 energy attack is really nice. And then Annihilate the single prizer, you can actually do 170 for 2, and then you also do 50 to yourself. That's actually, I mean, that's better than the Annihilate EX attack, the second one. But of course, what you're looking at here is, again, the first attack, Rage Fist for 1 fighting. This is a Pokemon that I actually thought I was going to see play, like potentially when it came out. I mean, stage 2s like weren't super good at the time, but I mean, there were like weird ones like Arceus, and then Gardevoir was kind of different as well. But as an attacking stage 2, for when fighting, it does 70 for each prize your opponent has taken. So if they've taken 5 prizes, you're hitting 350, which is absolutely absurd. That's enough to like one-shot everything. But even if they've taken 2 prizes, that's 140 for 1 energy on a single prizer, which is pretty solid. And then if they've taken 3, then it's 210 on 1 energy for a single prizer, which is very, very solid. That's like really good. It is a stage 2, obviously, and it has lower HP for a stage 2 with only 140. Obviously, if you use Dynamite Punch, putting yourself down to 90, that's like super low. But Rage Fist is definitely, honestly, one of the best attacks in the game that doesn't see play. This is a card I haven't really like played with much before, but I played with this deck. It's pretty fun. It plays Grand Tree. Grand Tree is a weird card, but it is like a bit of a focus in this deck. I don't know. I don't know the decision for all the cards in this deck. I will say, of course, Annihilape. You can give up prizes through Dusclops and Dusknoir to of course, do damage with those cards or place damage counters, then do more damage with the Annihilape itself, which is a strong combo. Though if you want a Dusknoir plus Annihilape, of course, those are 2 stage 2s. You probably need double rare candy to do that. Though you could be using Grand Tree or manually evolving, though I feel like a Team Evolution would be good in a deck like this. But it is a very fun deck to play. Obviously, Pidgeot stage 2 decks are nothing uncommon. They are some of the best decks in the game right now, if not the best decks in the game. And this plays kind of like them, but with a unique attacker that it's fun. And definitely something that I imagine most people would consider a rogue deck. The next deck here is a deck that I wasn't considering putting on this list, and then I saw it twice today, which actually mean it's probably like against the point, seeing a deck multiple times, then it's not like rogue. But actually, no, it wasn't the same deck. But I saw 2 decks playing Pecharunt. Pecharunt is a card that I believe, so it's only a promo right now, and it's not available everywhere, though on Pokemon DCG Live, I think everyone playing it could get it. I don't know. But it has its ability Toxic Subjugation. Oh, it is coming in the next expansion, though, Surging Sparks. I think it's at least coming in the next Japanese expansion, which is equivalent to Surging Sparks. So there's a good chance it'll be in that set. But don't count on me for that. I don't know if it is going to be in that set, but you can get it on Pokemon DCG Live just as a promo. It's not like expensive or anything. But Toxic Subjugation, as long as it's in the active, put 5 more damage counters on your opponent's poison Pokemon during Pokemon Checkup. You have ways to increase poison damage as well. Though this deck does not play them, but you can just like poison your opponent's active through, let's say, like Brute Bonnet, and then you can do big poison damage to them. This is a card. The Pecharunt is a card I played 4 games today. I think maybe I played 5. And 2 of them were against Pecharunt decks, and my opponent turn 1 knocked out my only Mankey. I was playing this deck, and they knocked out my only Mankey, which was like not good for me. But I did manage to win the one game, which was kind of funny. But you have, of course, the like Dark Box style deck. And so you have the 4 Dark Patch, you have some energy switches here. We see Janine Secret Technique and then the different Darkness Pokemon. No Monkey Dora EX. I do think Monkey Dora EX is a very strong Pokemon, but it definitely does have some flaws as well. The Okidogi EX is really powerful. 260 if it's poisoned. And then you can poison it with Pecharunt EX or Janine Secret Technique, but probably Pecharunt EX, it's very easy to do so. You just switch it in. So you should be able to do that. And then you have a Binding Emoji as well, which allows you to do 40 more. So 300 on a basic is really powerful, one-shotting almost everything. And then Roaring EX, of course, is one-shotting everything with its first attack, although it does damage itself 200. So if you're poisoned, you're getting yourself like super low. You'll be down to 10. And you need to switch out right away as well. You'll just have 10 HP. You can't then like go in. Well, I guess you could go ahead and swing it in Frenzy Gouging. It's not like that much worse than if you just had like 30, if you had 30 damage on you versus if you have 220 damage, you're knocking yourself out either way, but you will be knocking yourself out. Even if you use Calamity Storm, if you switch in with Pecharunt EX, you'll be knocking yourself out with Poison between turns. One thing to note about Poison, which is actually really meaningful, whether knocking your opponent's Pokemon out with Poison or yourself out with Poison, is that that's in between turns. That's during Pokemon checkup, so Pheasantipede EX as well as some other cards, but the biggest one would be Pheasantipede EX. Cannot activate, you cannot draw the 3 cards, which is a really big deal. So if you are able to take knockouts with Poison, then you can put yourself in a really good position, especially if you hit your opponent with an Iono, because they can't draw. With Pheasantipede EX, you don't need to now target that down to disable it. It just doesn't work on that turn. But Pecharunt, its attack is meaningful here as well. It does 10 for Darkness Colorless, and your opponent's Pokemon can't retreat next turn, and of course they are poisoned as well. So you do essentially 70 for 2 here and stop him from retreating, which is pretty solid. And then you also have the Absol, which is a really interesting card with 2 attacks here. Swirling Disaster for 1 Darkness, 10 to each of your opponent's Pokemon. And then you have Clawrend, which does 50 or 120 if your opponent's active has any damage on it for 2 energies. So some pretty cool single prize attackers there. And we do have the Monkey Dory as well. I mentioned the Roaring Moon EX being like super low on HP. Of course, other cards will be low on HP or have taken at least some damage from poison, so Monkey Dory is nice there. But Dark Box, which is kind of why I describe this deck as where you have a few different darkness attackers, which I do think that Monkey Dory EX is good in. I will say that, but it's a really interesting deck where you have it's kind of, I don't know what to compare it to. Like there aren't too many basic box decks. Well, there are basic box decks. There's like a fire basic box deck, but that's not like super good and doesn't see too much play. I feel like people don't think about it much either. Then there's ancient box, but that's not really a box deck because you only really have one attacker, except when you occasionally use Flutter Mane. But that's not a main attacker. You could have Crydon, you could have Great Tusk, and you probably have Walking Wake as well, but that's not an attacker at all, presumably. So this is definitely like one of the main box decks. There's Lost Zone box as well. Of course, that is a box deck. Has definitely taken a step back though with Kyurem and some other things. It's definitely a bit of an inconsistent deck. Lost Zone box. This is like also probably a bit inconsistent when I played it, but it's not bad. It works decently well. We also see some fun tech cards here. Penny isn't like super crazy, but Zurusix Machination is an interesting card that will be countered by the Amoonguss, which I talked about in a previous video though. Which I've never seen happen. That is a card I've never seen anyone play ever. Next, we have ourselves a Sinistcha EX Ogerpon EX deck, which is really interesting. We do have the single prize Sinistcha, and when I've heard people talk about Sinistcha Ogerpon, the deck I've heard has been focused on this Sinistcha, which I mentioned earlier. It's played by the same person, but it's a different deck. We do see Kricketune as well. This is a pretty solid card. Your grass Pokemon to play, other than Kricketune, have 40 more HP. This ability does not stack as well, but your Pokemon aren't like particularly tanky. I mean, Teal Ogerpon EX is like not that tanky. It's not super weak, but it's not that tanky. And then Sinistcha EX and Sinistcha are both really low. Sinistcha EX, like 240 versus Stage 1 EX is pretty bad. I mean, the ones that see play are, yeah, I don't know. They don't really see play. Koldengo sees some play. I'm trying to think of other ones. Like Norvin sees some play. I'm sure there's some other ones that see some play, but this definitely is like on the low end for Stage 1 EXs. Some of the ones that see play, the ones that pop into my mind are like Blissey EX and Palafin EX, which are super high outliers. So it's definitely lower than those. I mean, it's 100 less HP than Palafin EX. But it has its attack here. It has two. It can do Manja Splash, which is 120 for 2 and heals 30 from each of your Pokemon. Obviously not particularly good there. But if your opponent is playing some spread deck, then you could get like good value off of it, theoretically. But of course, you're here for Rebrew, which has put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon for each basic grass energy in your discard, then shuffle those energy cards back into your deck. So the idea here, I guess, is to discard lots of grass energies and then do different grass attacks. You can attack with the Sinistcha. You also have Rotom V-Star as your V-Star power in this deck, which is really interesting, which says conversion start. During your turn, use this ability, and it says you may use this ability. Discard any number of cards from your hand, then draw that many cards. So, of course, if you got yourself a solid 7-card hand with Professor's Research, you just discard all those cards. We also see Rigid Band, which is kind of funny. Your stage 1 takes 30 less damage from attacks. So your Sinistcha EX actually will be like decently tanky, essentially 310 HP with Rigid Band plus Kricketune here. Though that might mostly be a target for Secret Box, which gets, of course, one of each type of trainer or supporter, an item, a tool, which would be Rigid Band, and a stadium, which would be Cycling Road, discarding a card from an energy from your hand to draw a card. Greninja discarding energy to draw 2 cards. Secret Box discards 3 from your hand. Grant is it's one of the weirdest supporters. I made like a weird cards video, but I probably should include Grant as well, which is like the supporter card with an ability which says you can play it and it like does something. Nothing for this deck, but you are allowed to play it. It does need to do something for you to play it. But it says during your turn, if it's in Grant is in your excuse me, if Grant is in your discard, you can discard 2 cards from your hand to put Grant into your hand. And you cannot discard grants to recover grants. And it says it doesn't use up the supporter effect of your turn. It's just like an ability on a card, kind of. But obviously, it's not a Pokemon, it's a supporter, which is kind of weird. But it is a card you can just kind of keep in your discard pile. Then, you play your Earthen Vessels, play your Ultra Balls. You're like, okay, I need some more energies in the discard. I'll go ahead and use Grant. Of course, Sinistcha EX is going to be hitting like a spread, not really a spread attacker, a snipe bench damage attacker. And it is in damage counters, which is generally better. Will be stopped by Mist Energy, but will not be stopped by Manaphy, which of course is a highly played card in the game right now. So you are able to get through that, which is a pretty interesting concept here. The last deck we're going to be taking a look at today is, I don't know, it's this deck. This is a Dusknoir deck, and Dusknoir is just like all over the place right now. I'm interested in hearing down below your thoughts on Dusknoir. I've definitely found it like, I don't know, it adds like attention to the game. I don't know if it's good or bad. I mean, it's a very good card, though. It's a very strong card. Not one I personally love playing with, but it does add a layer of depth to the game, which is probably a good thing. Um, but it is kind of weird doing some interesting things with the prize trade. But regardless, this Dusknoir is definitely a very important card in this deck because you can knock yourself out a bunch of times. You can trigger Ionos early to really set your opponent back. You can do Roxanne to set your opponent back as well. Roxanne is, if you don't know, you can only play it if you're down, if your opponent has taken 3 prizes, and then it's arguably the best. Well, no, it's almost definitely the best supporter in the game. You shuffle your hand to your deck, draw 6. Your opponent shuffles their hand to the deck, draws 2, which is essentially the best possible Iono. The only other better situation would be if they only have 1 prize remaining, but that's not like that likely. You'll definitely have Ionos like this, but not that commonly because this means that you're so far down. But Roxanne you can play if you're in even or even winning position. So Roxanne is an insane supporter if you can use it. Just completely useless in the early game. But then you have Arceus V-Star to help you set up and to attack as well. You can attack with the Lumineon V. You have Blood Moon Ursaluna EX. Of course, it attacks for less energies for each prize your opponent has taken, and you're force feeding your opponent prizes through the Dusknoir. It's not really an engine, but like the Dusknoir cards and the Dusknoir package. Then you have Greninja EX as well with 2 attacks. Shinobi Blade, which is 170 for 1 water, which is really, really good. And then you search your deck for a card and put it into your hand, which is nice. As this deck doesn't really have an engine, it has Arceus V-Star, it has Squawkabilly EX, it has Pheasantip EX, Lumineon V, but those aren't like Barrel Squovats or Curlias or consistent onboard draw engines. And then you also have Mirage Barrage, which is one of the most, I don't know if controversial is the right term, but like confusing attacks in the game. It says discard 2 energy from this Pokemon. It does 120 damage to 2 of your opponent's Pokemon. If you discard a double turbo, you are only going to be doing 100, despite the double turbo not being on. Presumably on at the time of which you do damage, but it is on the time which you calculate damage. So you will be doing 120 or you'll be doing 100 a lot of the time with your double turbo energies. Arceus V-Star searches for 2 cards with its V-Star power, but also its attack does 200 or 180 with a double turbo. Accelerates energies to Pokemon Vs, but only to Pokemon Vs. This is why this card has fallen a bit out of favor with the game as time has gone on, because the partners it's had have been reduced and new cards are not partners for it directly. You're not accelerating energies to your, for example, Greninja EX. If you could, that would be much better, obviously. And I don't think it would break the card. I mean, I feel like Arceus V-Star is a good card. Probably, I mean, I did my video with Uncommon Fossil, and we both agreed it was the best V-Star. Not clearly the best V-Star, but we both did agree that it was. And Arceus V-Star is definitely, probably shouldn't be better, but in the current metagame, it's like a little underwhelming. So I'm actually interested in hearing your thoughts, if you think it would be too good if it could accelerate to any type of Pokemon, kind of like ADP did, or some other card. I mean, there are lots of cards that accelerate to any type of Pokemon, but nothing quite like Arceus V-Star in the game right now that sees play, I don't think. But this deck definitely has a lot of different things going on, which is really interesting to see. You have the Clef Key, you have like rare candy and rare candies for different Pokemon. No Pidgeot in this deck. I feel like Pidgeot would make sense, but also it adds, just more space, which isn't necessarily what you're looking to do. And you're looking to go kind of quickly, and Pidgeot will definitely slow you down a little bit. But overall, some really cool decks, and some ones that I feel like would be fun for you to try out, and some ones that I want to try out as well. Some that I have tried out, but some I haven't tried out exactly or at all. But I hope you enjoyed the video. Consider liking, subscribing, and hitting the bell. So just decks you want me to cover as well. I do have a Discord server where we can submit deck ideas. But I hope you enjoyed, and as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.